Okay, now we're getting into a blend of Shea and standard Kempo techniques. Now this is where David German's Thai martial arts comes in handy because, again, this is an integration of applications of different arts. The whole idea behind transitional arts is not just to be able to say, well, I can do this or I can do that, but I can do this and that at the same time. In Shea, we look at joint manipulation. In this case, for a right punch, we're looking at parry, lift, and lock. Now, what happens if he strikes with the other hand first? Can I do the same technique? I can, and it works very well. I simply block up, come down, and lift. Now he's going to throw 2 punches at my face. We'll see how this works. And here we are, just like this. As I move in and drive, you see how it lifts him up on his toes. Okay, so being able to do both these blocks very fast helps a lot. Now, the advantage of conditioning the hands is that this strike here can be very strong and very fast. I can use a knife edge, but what I want to do instead is I want to just sort of pop it up out of the way, and I want to drive the back of my wrist into the inside of his forearm. As I do this, I'm going to drop and slam down on top of the wrist at the same time. And here we have it. Now, can he turn towards me? Let's see. Can he? Not very successfully. Can he turn back? And here is where I use my elbow into his back to keep him from turning. Now, can he drive down and try and get out of the grip? So if he drives down, I follow. I do not fight. I follow him simply and continue. At this point here, I can kneel in on the shoulder joint and put pressure, not on his back specifically, but on the joint between his shoulder and back. Then I can take the wrist and crank it sideways. As I turn the fingers, it causes a great deal of pressure on the elbow, the forearm, and the shoulder. This allows me a good stabilizing procedure. It makes it very hard for him to roll out of it because he's in a great deal of pain. Now this is pain compliance. For a person who is not pain compliant, we have a whole different set of techniques, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's work on an inside technique. Step over here, please. On an inside technique, we're going to work on the same 2 punches, left and right. For the left punch, I'm going to do the same type of break. For the parry, I'm going to roll the arm down, go into an elbow stretcher or possibly an arm break, and then I'm going to do something a little different. First strike here, second here. Roll down, palm up, strike. Pull, roll back. As you can see, this puts him in a very uncomfortable position. What can I do from here? If I continue to twist, will he fall down? Chances are he won't. He's going to be stuck here, unless I bring his elbow up. But if I keep the same pressure on his wrist, raising his elbow is going to tear his wrist up. At this point, if I really want control, I'm going to extend all the way through. From here, I can do anything I want, and there's not much you can do about it because of the compound torque I have on elbow and wrist. Now, I can also go in and go into the throat here. As I go into the throat, I have a finger here right below where the opening to the ear canal is. And as I press in there and lift, he's in a lot of pain. What else can I do here? I can bring my thumb over to the other side and come in with a pinch in both directions. That can really hurt. Now, if I want to take him down, what I do is I simply lever and release pressure on the wrist. If I keep pressure on the wrist, his wrist is going to break. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now, most of the time you don't see people coming in and just grabbing you to threaten, but it does happen. They're not going to grab your wrist unless you're really young, and they're trying to pull you somewhere, but that's another type of self-defense technique. We're going to work on a simple lapel grab. As a person grabs a lapel, what we're going to do here is instead of trying to fight him or pull away, which is exactly what he wants, we're going to move in. As we move in, we're pinning the hand here. As we pin, reaching over and grabbing here, we're simply going to keep the wrist just like this and keep it pressed here. And then we're going to turn and bow, just like we would if we're honoring the person who's trying to hurt us. Now, what can we do from here? The idea with the pin here is we don't move the hand at all. All we do is clasp it to our chest. We keep it flat. At this point, what can we do? He can try and struggle or turn out, but instead we're going to take the elbow here and pull it out just a little bit. This makes it very hard for that person to do much of anything. The more we crank this, the worse it gets. What else can we do? Go ahead and stand back up here. If we were to reach in here and grab high in the collar and pull, now as we turn and crank on the wrist, he lowers down. Now he's in a great deal of pain and he's going to pass out fairly soon. So that's our next technique. Can we make that work? Very quickly. What happens if we don't get the strangulation technique? It doesn't really matter. If we're going into, let's say this is Kotomawashi. Okay, if we're going to Kotomawashi here, we can always circle around into the back, holding the wrist. As we come in here, we're going to reach over and extend. Now, we've got a very good strangulation technique. Now we raise, and again, keeping the little finger up, start cranking and applying pressure. This is where we have a very good control point, and a point in which the person doesn't have to be compliant to pain, because he's going to pass out. There's several ways to deal with a person who doesn't feel pain. And in this case, we're going to use Shea to lead into strangulation techniques, or knockouts. Knockouts don't rely on pain, they rely on shock to the nervous system. So when I see this person first doing something, and I get him in a technique that I realize is not going to work because he doesn't feel it, what's my follow-up? So let's say we've got the inside left-right. So we've got left here, right here, we come in, we're working this, nothing's happening. What are we going to do here? The first thing we can do is take his wind, so we're going to drive elbows straight into the floating ribs, just kind of drive those ribs in. Second, as we come up, we're going to take the other side here and take the ribs too. Now, as we come down here, can we shoot straight in and pull? As we do this, we're going to come over the top, we're going to push on the shoulder and grab our sleeve, and then we're going to lift. If we come in from the other side, if you can see this technique here, if we come in from the other side here and pull down, now here's the neat part. At this point, he's going to pass out. Now, of course, he has a gi on, so that's easy to do. What happens if he doesn't have a gi? The idea is to manipulate the person's body. So again, we have left, right, and I'm going to push to the side. At this point, I'm coming up underneath and I'm going to strike into the side of the neck here. As I strike, here with the rich hand, I'm grabbing high, but I don't have to. I'm just going to grab here. At this point, I'm going to come across, locking the arm, and do a takedown from there. Now, what's this arm can do? I don't know, can it hit me? Can it? It's really kind of locked in tight because it's got no place to go. So I'm going to just sort of come in here and tilt off to the side. It doesn't really matter whether he's going to hit me or not because his arm's tucked in pretty tight and he doesn't have a whole lot of power. The other thing I can do is the same technique, but I'm going over the arm. So as he strikes here, I go completely over and strike here. As I strike, I'm coming in, I can grab the collar here, but I don't have to. I can grab and go into what's called a single wing choke here. As I go into this choke, I'm going to pull down, sideways, take him off balance, and hang him by his gi. Let's say he doesn't have a gi. As I come into this technique here, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to slap this shoulder very hard, spinning him. As I do this, you know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go into a figure 4 strangulation technique, or rear naked choke. At this point, hand behind the head, I want to make sure the point of my elbow is directly in front of his esophagus. I'm going to push on the back of his head, and I'm going to lean my head into his as I drag him off balance. At this point, he hangs himself.